Hello, my name is Tom and welcome to my channel, Integral Views. So I attended the Unite the Kingdom march, protest, whatever you want to call it, recently in London to see for myself what the movement was about and to have that experience. And I want to give my first-hand report. Basically, I have been shocked by the mischaracterization of the event in the media and as it's been portrayed by politicians, by the Mayor of London, by our Prime Minister, by news outlets, by MPs. It's really quite a shocking experience to have when you go there and you witness an event firsthand, you speak to people to learn to understand, and then you see it being completely mischaracterized in all sorts of ways. So it's being called far right. And I really think that is incredibly wrong and dangerous, divisive, inflammatory, but most of all, just wrong. So I want to just explore that in this video and give my perspective as someone who's been a left-leaning, liberal centrist for my entire adult life. So what's that, what does that look like from my point of view? I was there and I'm going to give you my perspective. All right, so first of all, there's a lot of misreporting, right? So the Met Police came out with a figure of 110,000 people at that march. Totally wrong. There was at least, I would say, I did my own analysis. I'm going to do a whole video on this because I went deep into that. Because when I saw that, I thought, no. I've been to many festivals in my life, music festivals and other events, and I know what big crowds are like, so what they look like. And I did a deep dive into this, and I'm going to put it in another video. But for here, I will say, Tommy Robinson and that group are saying 3 million. That's equally bizarre and wrong. I think that the reality is between the two. I think the reality is between 350 and 500,000 people, but I'll go into detail on that in another video. But I really want to focus on this complete mischaracterization of the event in the media. It's just laughable. Shocking. It's actually really shocking to be at an event, to see something, to witness it, to know what happened, to speak to people, and then have the leaders of your own country in very senior political positions and the media literally just either unintentional. I don't know if they mean doing this intentionally or if they really believe this. If they really believe it was a far right group, well, yeah, of course that's really concerning. Well, the good news is it's not. It's just not. It's not true. And I'm not only going to say this as an opinion, I'm going to basically prove it from experience. Now, you may not have been there, right? But I was there. And I'm not someone who has been, supporting these movements for a long time. I'm basically, as I said, like a centrist, right? A liberal, a bleeding heart liberal, whatever, okay? So, okay, let's start off. Basically, I got there and I was on Blackfriars Bridge, I think around 12:30. Which is way back from where the start of the line is. Okay, it's like it was packed all the way back to Blackfriars Station. Eventually, I calculated it's a 2.1 mile long march, just packed. Anyway, so I got there, and what I see families, mostly families. I see a lot of working class people, clearly, right, who've come from around the country. But the atmosphere was not negative. The atmosphere was not aggressive. It wasn't as it's being portrayed. It was basically like a celebration in a sense. It was a celebration of British culture, and it was a diverse crowd, right? It really was. I say this from first-hand experience. I walked up Blackfriars Bridge with a family originally, where the older gentleman was originally from India, and there was 3 generations that have been in the UK, and they were all wearing Union Jacks. And we were just talking, I was talking to them walking up. It was a really nice thing. There were families, all different generations. Okay, and Okay, now, let's start with defining far right, actually. So far right, what it really means, because we need to be clear in our language. We need to know what we're saying. Far right is basically extremism on the right of politics. And that really is like, I would say, pathological ethnocentricity. Now, you might not know what I mean by that term. I made a whole video on Raise the Colours digging into ethnocentricity that explains all of that. But basically, far right, to put it in its simplest terms, is racism, sexism, and authoritarianism. So it's those kinds of hate. It's like hatred from an ethno-nationalist point of view that's targeted at anyone who's not within that group, and it's like a hatred. Okay, it's racism that we used to see throughout history, the Nazis, etc. That is not what was happening there. That is not what was happening at that event at all. Okay, and I'm not only saying this, but I've got evidence for it. I saw it, and now I'm going to show you a photo. So this photo is of a political group, and at the time I took the photo, I didn't know who they were. They were on Blackfriars Bridge, right? And it's Patriotic Alternative. And the reason I took this photo is because it was really odd that there was no crowd there. This was on Blackfriars Bridge. It was packed. This next photo is of the same bridge in the same position, slightly further up, packed bridge, okay? And this shows what the status of that bridge was at that time, same time, okay? To my right were these guys, these political guys. They were on their own, okay? And I looked up who they are afterwards because I didn't know. I just thought it was really odd that they're out on their own, yeah. And so I took a photo. It's like there was an exclusion zone around them. Like a natural exclusion zone. And so now I'm going to just put up here what the, sort of quick search showed me on these people. And I would consider these people really as the far right. These people were, not popular, clearly. And, it's just so odd because the way the whole thing's being portrayed is as if all of those 500,000 people in London, including me, and all of the families, the diverse people that I spoke to firsthand, that they're all far right and racist. It is ridiculous. And to get serious for a moment, it's not only ridiculous, it's harmful, it's dangerous. We just saw Charlie Kirk in the United States assassinated because groups of people on the left had been convinced that he was a fascist and a Nazi because they've been told that repeatedly in media over and over again by leaders, and then these people, these younger groups, they go into extreme groups, they go into Discord, and then they form really far left Antifa groups, and then they act out with violence, and we see that growing in society, right? Now, it would be remiss of me to say that far-right racism doesn't exist, because of course it does. But it's a minority, a vast minority. It's impossible. I didn't speak to everyone, but that was not what was said to me during my discussions with people at this Unite the Kingdom protest. Actually, often people who were there, who are non-white ethnicities, were the most bold in their patriotism. And I'll show an example of a guy. Now, I'll put the photo up now. Okay, now the thing is about this is that I felt really awkward because I'm not like a journalist, right? So I felt really awkward taking photos of people. But I got this photo of this guy from behind, right? And he had sequins like stitched into his white shoes. So St. George Cross sequin shoes, and he was dripped out. But it wasn't just him. There was loads of people. I spoke to a couple of people from Uzbekistan, students. I walked up Waterloo Bridge with them, and I spoke to them about what they thought about the whole thing and why they were there. I met an elderly lady from Zimbabwe, originally from Zimbabwe, and I spoke to her about how much pride she has in being British and how much she loves British culture. There was a family from Sri Lanka, I spoke. It was all sorts. These are just examples, right? But the thing is that to classify the whole thing as far right is just so wrong. So let's look at how this is being classified, right? So what we're looking at here is Sadiq Khan's comments after the event. He said, "I know many people, particularly from London's diverse communities, are feeling extremely worried following the events of this weekend. So it takes me back to how I felt growing up in the 70s and 80s when far-right political parties marched on our streets. The leaders of the far right are once again attempting to hijack our flag, with minorities being intimidated and fear, hatred and division being sown." Come on, this is so crazy, it's so wrong. This is not what's actually happening. That was a patriotic event. That's what that was, it was patriotism. Okay, as Londoners and as proud Brits, we must unite to reject the far right, just as we have many times before. Not far right. Get it? Come on, let's be honest. Have a proper conversation, an adult conversation. This is just slander and just inaccuracies. It's just not correct fundamentally. But it's going to take a huge effort from us all, from people of all races and backgrounds who are willing to stand up for our British values of equality, inclusion and mutual respect. As Mayor, I'll continue to do everything I can to challenge the far right and all those who peddle the politics of fear and division. I mean, this is crazy, because what he's doing here is he's actually sowing division. He's mischaracterizing what happened, and then he's sowing division and dividing groups, dividing communities. He's saying everyone there at that march, far right, that was a far right march, need to be rejected. All of us need to come together and reject them. Well, I'm sorry, but that's not what happened. That's not who was there. That is a ridiculous interpretation. I spoke to people, I went there myself, and I even got footage of it. So, I think this is just bizarre. So let's go on to another one. What else have I got? Okay, so this next one is Richard Bergen, MP. We are in an incredibly dangerous moment. Oh, so dangerous. Because of course, saying that's not inflammatory. We not only face the threat of far-right government coming to power for the first time in our history, but also a violent far-right street movement on a scale not seen here for decades, if ever. Well, he's right. It's never been seen before, but he's wrong at the same time, because it's not a far-right movement. It's a patriotic movement across all ethnicities. Now, this is just bizarre. The whole thing is bizarre, because when you're there, you speak to people, you know what happened, you come out and then you see this and you think, wow, do these people really believe this? This street movement, led by convicted criminal Tommy Robinson, is especially dangerous for Black, Muslim, Jewish and other minority communities, and we need to build the broadest possible opposition to it. Now, I spoke to a lot of people. Not once, not one time at all in all my conversations did anyone say anything racist. Not once. It just didn't happen. That wasn't what was happening there, okay? Now, I'm not saying, maybe there's a percentage and there's an element there, but you can't characterize the whole thing. That's just divisive and really harmful. Everyone has an interest in standing up to these far-right thugs. Am I a far-right thug? I was there. That's a weird thing to say. That's kind of inflammatory. What are you saying? Their hatred, racism and division, what he's doing, are being funded and cheered by the super rich to distract from the real causes of people's problems, our rigged economic system. Ugh. Okay, now I kind of agree. Yes, wealth inequality is a major problem. I agree with that. Completely disagree with them on the solution to that. He is absolutely economically illiterate, by the way, and I've gone through some of his ideas, his economic ideas, if you can even call them that, previously, and they are not fit for purpose. So he doesn't know what he's talking about there either. Seems like he doesn't know what he's talking about on anything, basically. So lastly, he just said, throughout history we have driven these far right forces back. Okay, Now, I think I've been pretty clear here. This was not far right. This was not a far right movement. Were there elements that could be considered far right? Maybe even some of the speakers, like there was this thing where they tore up this Palestinian flag on stage that I thought was really, I don't support that at all. I think that's divisive as well and like inflammatory and shouldn't have been done. Didn't agree with absolutely everything that was being said, but it's really clear that it's not far right. I'm sorry. It's a complete mischaracterisation. And I think that, you know, these people should know better, because it's like they're not aware of, you know, Antifa, and they're not aware of how these words are interpreted. And I've had people in my close circles even say that I was far right or alt-right just for going there to experience, to witness, which is bizarre. I've been to Free Palestine movements to find out what was going on there in the past before I started my channel. But no one called me far left Antifa when I did that. No one, you know, see what I mean? So, yeah, I think that, I think this is just, I just can't see this in any other way than it being bad. You know, they should not be doing this. They need to be more responsible. They need to be more accurate. They need to define their terms. And they need to see if what's actually being said and what's happening really fit into those phrases, into those terms. You know, because it's just meaningless. From my perspective, what's happened as a liberal, as a centrist, right, is the left has gone so far across, so far out to the left, that now everyone who basically doesn't completely agree with them on their policies, including open borders, right, everyone who doesn't agree with them, you're just far right. All of you. Well, good luck with that. Good luck with that. I guess there's a reason that Reform are seriously leading in the polls. Not that I support them. But anyway. All right. Thanks for watching, and I hope you found that entertaining or, you know, useful or interesting. Now, I'm going to make some more videos. I'm going to make a video about the crowd size. I'm going to make a couple more videos on the United Kingdom. So please subscribe to see those videos. And if you're interested in the ideology that causes these issues, go watch my videos on ethnocentricity, so raise the colours and ethnocentricity, and then another one which I made on mass migration and world centricity. And they dig into the depths of the ideology, how it manifests, how it aligns into psychological development, and you know what's next as well, which is really important for us to get to. But yeah, I mean, this was just a ridiculous mischaracterization. And anyone who's like me, who's like that centrist, I recommend going there, having the experience, and then watching the media afterwards, because it will blow your mind. It's just so, it's just so weird. It's such a weird experience to have, because it makes you start to think, oh my God, what's going on here? You know, these are our media institutions. Yeah, you can see how people end up in that conspiracy theory mindset where they're like, oh, they're all connected and they're doing it on purpose. I completely understand now how people get there. But look, from my point of view, I think it's just that they really believe this. They really have this shared ideology that's flawed, it's wrong. Not completely wrong, but, you know, in some very important ways it's wrong. So, you know, but there we go. That's my take. Thanks for watching. Cheers.